Let me know if you have any issues hearing me because my headphones sometimes act up.
Okay, got it. All right. All right, I think we are now live. I always, it's always that 2 minutes where you're not quite sure if it's set or not yet, but I think we're in good shape. So hello and happy Thursday, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with my good friend and colleague, Annika Erikson from Articheck. And before we get rolling, I'll ask you to introduce yourself, of course, just doing a weather check, Articheck weather check. It's cloudy here. It's so funny because, of course, I'm currently joining you from North Carolina, where I have to say I've been very grateful for the beautiful sunshine. Even when it's cold, it's not so sad because it's been so sunny and beautiful. But today we have very Dutch weather. I must say it is drizzly and mild and gray. So I feel like I'm back in Amsterdam.
Well, it's nighttime here now, but it has been really quite sunny, I would say, for the most part lately. Yeah, not so much rain. And I guess I have mixed feelings about it because obviously it's nice, but it's also slightly concerning because we had like the hottest New Year's Day on record in the UK, and so yeah, mixed.
Yeah. It's that kind of, you feel guilty for enjoying the nice weather when it's, it's the middle of January and you're kind of like, okay, this is not normal and it shouldn't be this nice out, but I'm really happy that it is. I mean, these are the types of internal conversations I have with myself that make me realize I need to live in a sunny, warm climate. So, I'm just going to have to move to Costa Rica or something, but we'll get
well, I really love this time of year when you see in England, you see the first green shoots. And the daffodils have been coming up for the last week or so, and the primroses. I saw some buds of primroses that are probably going to open tomorrow. So that's exciting.
Oh, and see, that's exciting. The first signs of spring, and it's that's really nice. I do have to say, hold on, someone wants to come join us. We had a guest from you yesterday earlier. So this is everyone. You remember Max. He's especially grumpy today because he has a vet appointment after this and he has to fast. So he hasn't gotten to have any breakfast. And so he's not very happy with mom, which means that he has to come, interrupt my meetings.
Poor Max.
I know, poor baby.
Is Max the dog from The Grinch Who Stole Christmas? Was his name?
He looks like it, doesn't he? Yes, and actually, indeed, that was also a Max. So, yeah, it's not the same dog, but it should be. Well, anyway.
Yes, he's very cute, but he does look a little grumpy at the moment.
A little bit. So usually he's much better mood, but he's a little hungry right now, so I apologize. But anyway, well, thank you so much again, Annika, for joining us today. It's just such a pleasure to have you. Articheck does so many amazing things. I think it's really I don't want to say not as well known, but there's so much that you guys do for sustainability. And I'm just always amazed. I feel like every time I open up my inbox, I've got a new announcement from Articheck about some amazing event or publication or program or product service that you guys offer. So I'd love to hear more about Articheck as a company, how you decided to start your own company. Would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here with you, and I really, really appreciate Key Culture and the wonderful work that you guys are doing. It's so good to find kindred spirits in the art world, kind of bringing sustainability to the fore, which I think is just so important. So thank you. And yeah, so a little kind of potted history about me and Articheck is that I am a museum conservator, and I was working at Tate about a decade ago. And I was very frustrated because I had very little time to actually do practical treatment with the collection. And it was like, it's a world-class collection. So I felt like really excited to be there, excited that I got that job and I was working with this amazing collection and I was just raring to go. But then instead I had to go do a bunch of paperwork instead of, being with the collection. And so that was not ideal. And I imagine that a lot of people in your audience may have had, similar pangs themselves in their careers, and of kind of wistfully looking at the thing that they would really like to be doing in terms of collection care, and then the thing that they actually have to be doing in terms of paperwork and bureaucracy and politics and things. So anyway, when the iPad was launched, we were all like, "Ooh, tablets are the future." That's gonna be us. And I thought, I think that there's something there. And I started off by doing a research project to interview people on what kind of specifications a tool like that would need to have. And I found out that there was a real appetite amongst conservators for an international industry standard in condition reporting. And so my goals were kind of, streamline this process, give people back more bench time, make it international industry standard so that we could add clarity. I had all these situations where, even at a world-class institution like Tate, I had received condition reports with like handwritten notes in 3 different languages, where I was like, okay, I get to sign my name to this legally binding insurance document that I can't read.
And everything is so objective or so subjective, and it's people are using different terms everywhere. And I think that was one of the problems that I had when I was a conservator, is that there wasn't a standard set of like options for what terms you use. I mean, if you call something dirty, what does that mean?
Absolutely. Or is it just, consistent with age? I mean,
is it good condition? Is it in great condition? Like, I mean, oh my goodness, it is just so needed, I think, to have that clarity in place for sure.
And also, supporting multiple languages too is another objective. We finally now are in a position where we're supporting 8 languages, I think it is.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And in some languages, it's just like one basic template, and we're kind of branching out as we can. And we're really relying a lot on our customer base to help us with that, because it's really driven by our customers saying, we really want the French paintings template. And so we're like, okay, just give us the translations and we'll do that. So we're developing it slowly, but surely. And so a couple of years ago, when I was protesting with Extinction Rebellion in Trafalgar Square, I was, the National Gallery was behind me, and I was thinking, you guys next to me have no idea about what a massive carbon footprint they have behind me, and how, so much of it is really not necessary. Yeah. I was thinking at the time of the Bisweight Green protocols, and the fact that so few institutions had actually adopted them, even the institutions that helped create them, which I think the National Gallery is one, in fact. And so, I thought I can do more, helping my industry to become greener than I can as a body in a protest. And I still, try to get out to some protests, but this is, I think more impactful is to try and help within, the industry that I work in. I've done a lot of work in my personal life, and I feel like we've had a lot of chats about this, right? How it kind of feeds into your thinking about your professional life is when you kind of go through that journey of like, how can I reduce my carbon footprint at home? And it's challenging, and we all, I think, have to do what we can. And I think one of the things that happens in your personal and your professional life often is being kind of overwhelmed with the complexity of the issues of how we change, because so much systems change is really needed. Exactly. And it feels, very far away and very complicated and very difficult.
And out of your hands. I think, if you don't have options, then how are you supposed to make greener choices?
Exactly. So one of the things that I've really tried to focus on is practical solutions tackling the largest categories of the footprint. So Amazing. It's, buildings, freight, and staff travel. These are really the 3 key areas for most arts organizations. And of course, it's wonderful to be tackling lots of different things and areas, vegan options in your cafe, and, there's so many things that you can do. Waste and materials, I know, is something that you guys talk a lot about in a very important area as well. And But those are really the three areas that I've chosen to focus on. And one of the things that we've launched last year is a virtual courier. So
yes,
that's about staff travel.
Okay, and I want to delve all into that because I think this is just, it can completely and totally revolutionize the way that we not only address our carbon footprint, but we deal with loans on an international scale. So can you tell me, I don't know if I was interrupting you talking about some of your other initiatives, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what is virtual courier, how does it work?
Absolutely, yes. So basically, it's a COVID innovation. Okay. And during the pandemic, people obviously, shipments and travel was interrupted, and is still being interrupted in some cases. And so, as probably everyone in your audience knows, it's kind of standard operating procedure for humans to kind of personally chaperone artwork as it travels, to oversee transit and make sure that the risk is reduced in all of the kind of key areas of transit, right? And so that was obviously not possible, especially in the beginning of the pandemic. And this was really causing a lot of difficulties for loans and exhibitions to kind of be happening. And so we thought at the time, should we go ahead and build a robust professional solution for this problem or not? Because, is it a temporary problem? Because, hopefully the pandemic is a temporary situation, or is it something that we, really need a long-term solution for? And in thinking about it, I thought, well, in the medium term, there's going to be a lot of budget reductions. And so that's going to be, important for people to keep their costs down where possible. And of course, overseeing transit remotely is a much, much less expensive option compared with, doing it in person with a human. And so it's like we priced virtual courier at 1/10 of the cost of travel. So it's
huge
much
savings.
Less. Yeah. And, I don't know if you're aware of this, but courier costs, when we were doing our market research, I was shocked that courier costs can be half of an operating budget for an exhibition. It can be, in some cases, up to £500,000. Yeah, for one exhibition.
For one exhibition? Not for a museum, but for one exhibition?
For the really big, for the really big shows. Yeah.
Is part of that because a lot of transit is done with, first class, business class?
Oh, yes. That is often written into the loan agreements.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, there's hotel, per diem, there's all the related costs as well.
Wow.
And so, so of course, reducing budgets. And actually, I would also add that not only should you, think about it, because we know that, it's normally the borrowers that pay, right? And so a lot of lenders are thinking, well, it's not coming from my budget, but I think that it's really important to, in these times, I think we need to kind of pull together and be kind to each other, right? And I think that also goes for considering budgets and considering whether it's really necessary to make your borrower pay for something that may not be necessary, right? So I think that's something else to consider. I was recently speaking with someone, I won't name names, but I was speaking with someone who was part of participating with an institution in a major exhibition, in a major international exhibition, and they were from an institution that was, not so wealthy, but the borrower was from an institution that is considered to be more wealthy, generally speaking. And so, their attitude, and they were in a country where there was a 14-day quarantine was going to be necessary.
Oh, wow. Right? Okay. Yeah.
So they required 2 couriers, not 1, but 2 for their loan, because someone had to basically quarantine for 2 weeks before they could do the install. Right.
Oh my goodness.
But what that meant was that the courier, the other courier that was doing the condition checking before things left was not the same courier that was doing the install on the other side, because they had to do the quarantine. So actually the value of sending someone from the home institution was much less, because they weren't even familiar with the objects that they were condition checking on the other side. Because of
so it actually was kind of defeating the purpose in a way of having that courier in the first place.
Yeah, but for twice the price.
Wow. Okay. Well, so, this doesn't sound like a very viable solution.
No, it doesn't sound great, does it? Yeah.
No.
And so, and of course, 14 days of hotel fees before you can even get started, doing your install is also really not ideal from a cost point of view. No. And also people talk about like fun trips and stuff. It's not a fun trip to be sitting in a hotel room for 2 weeks.
Not really. I don't really know anyone who would want to go do that.
Yeah, it's not a good look. So anyway, and of course the long-term concern is sustainability and your carbon footprint. Yeah. And in fact, when you're thinking about all of the different areas of your carbon footprint as an institution, I have to say, from my perspective, couriers is a really low hanging fruit, because some of the other major categories, adopting Bizoit green protocols and choosing sea freight over air freight, those are things which people are a lot less comfortable with, will take a lot more time to work on de-risking and evaluating and kind of sorting out, essentially. And so whereas virtual couriers is something that has been forced to happen. There's a lot of institutions that are already doing this. And the key difference between what they're doing now, because basically people were forced to figure something out, right? And so a lot of institutions have come up with guidelines where they're using kind of a various tools like Zoom and WhatsApp and Facebook and Dropbox, or images on their cell phones, texts, emails, and all kinds of different methods and means of sharing information and data. And essentially what you're doing here is you're having multiple stakeholders, the borrower, the lender, a bookend courier, potentially the shipper. All of these different moving parts are trying to communicate with each other, right? Yeah. That's essentially what virtual courier is doing, is giving them a secure platform to do that documentation and communication together. What one person was overseeing before is now being done by multiple people, right?
And on multiple platforms. So there's a lot more possibility for miscommunication and error. And I didn't get that email, or, my format or my software doesn't accept this format or something. So that sounds a little bit messy. Maybe I might use that word. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, but messy, but also terribly insecure. And I think
that's a good point too.
Be a major concern. Yeah. I think that is something that institutions have to really seriously consider, is the security of artwork, and its current location is something that is no joke. And so the likes of WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. There's like privacy issues in addition to hacking and security issues. Emailing is like the least secure from a cybersecurity point of view thing there is, right? So our security protocols are very robust. We have 2-factor authentication. Everything is password protected. Everything is encrypted. Because we are art professionals and we understand that this is really important. So we've developed it in that way. Everyone gets instant email notifications when somebody's added information to the group about the transit, but those email notifications are shared in through a secure link where you have to add a password and do 2-factor authentication to access the actual information. And there's different permission levels and stuff. So,
well, that makes a lot more sense.
yeah, exactly. So, we launched Virtual Courier last year, and we are really hopeful that it's going to become kind of the new industry standard. I think that, of course, there's also a concern by people that I've heard, at least in Europe, this concern that, if we start allowing virtual courier, we won't ever be allowed to do human, couriers again.
Well, that doesn't make sense. It's not black and white. I mean, it's not like we're gonna, you have to throw everything out because you're doing one thing different. It's, there's obviously opportunity for, I don't think that anyone is ever going to ship the Mona Lisa via virtual courier. So
exactly. Totally. And I think you really need to start to develop like a tiered structure.
Yeah,
where,
that makes sense.
You're looking at things by fragility, by material, by value, by, all kinds of different parameters. And you're saying, okay, this one needs a bookend courier because we're not very familiar with this borrower, and but we can do a virtual courier for it as well, and or we're going to do a virtual courier, but we don't need a bookend courier because we're really familiar with this borrower, we've worked with them a lot before, we really trust them, or there's lots of different things to take into consideration. And so I think that it's not like a one size fits all kind of situation. Exactly. But on the other hand, if I understand that it's often difficult in our industry, people find change difficult. But the thing that makes us kind of hopeful about this is that people have to change right now. They're being forced to change, and so it's an opportunity to get them to change in such a way that is really going to facilitate and enable a more sustainable working practice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think very much, as you said, silver lining of COVID is that we've had to adapt to new systems that actually, in some cases, lead to innovation that can be more beneficial for everyone. So I think, yeah, indeed, it's going to be interesting to see how this develops. As you said, there is a lot of inertia in our field, but hopefully, when we see that good things are coming out of this, then that'll continue. But
I think, sorry to interrupt.
No,
I think
ahead,
that
please.
where cost cutting exercises and sustainable exercises align and overlap.
Right in the middle, then that's the win-win, right? That's the win-win.
That's the sweet spot.
Absolutely.
Where that people will actually make change, and a little kind of stats to throw at you, early stats, because we also, as part of the service for Virtual Courier, have been providing people with, how much carbon they saved by using the service. And so far we have saved around 50 tons and 50,000 pounds per project. Wow.
That's amazing. Per project. That's phenomenal. That's really, really cool. Nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Really, thanks. And it's actually made us think about developing a carbon calculator as well, because of needing to do this manually ourselves on a project basis.
Not so fun. But doable. But that's very cool. So for those of us who might not be as familiar with the concept of virtual courier, can you explain how it works?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, and I was just explaining this today, actually, because there's one happening right now as we speak.
Cool. That's exciting. Very cool.
Yeah. And so to use them for an example, it is a private collection, which is based in America. And they have just purchased a couple of things from a major auction house that is based in London. And so they have hired a shipper to take the stuff back to their warehouse and then send it to America through Masterpiece, and to kind of receive it on the other end, and which is how a lot of people receive stuff, and then it goes to their warehouse, usually sometimes with another shipper. And we've done this a few times now with different private collections. And so so what happens is, they alert us, this is one of our customers. And so they've said, we want to try this out. And we are keen. So we're going to try it on this, acquisition that we just got. And they asked us to, jump into a call to kind of walk through with them everything that is entailed. And so essentially, in our product, you just create a group, and then you share that group with all of the different, participants, all the different players in the move, which would be, in this case, it would be Christie's, and the shipper that is sending it, and the shipper that is receiving it, and the people that are driving the whole thing, which in this case is our customer. But you don't have to be a customer of Articheck to use virtual courier. But essentially, when you activate it, it's good for 30 days, and it's to cover the entirety of the move. And anyone that needs to add information to the group can do so under the same credit. So it's a credit-based system. And one credit is £200 if you're a customer and £250 if you're not. And so it's one credit for road, and it's 2 for air or sea because they include road. And so you essentially just activate the group, and then you can share and invite everyone that's involved. And for each person that you share and invite it with, you set their permissions levels. So for example, let's say that you're using a shipper that might use an agent because it's like a long international move, right? So you can set a permission level that the shipper you're working with is allowed to also invite other people to the group or not.
Okay. Yeah.
And they might only give transit access to their agent because, for example, if you're a man with a van, you don't need to know even what's in the van, right? Right. Yeah, exactly. You definitely don't need to have, permission levels to be able to update condition reports of things that are
right.
Right.
Well, I don't know. You might have a conservator that's also a driver.
Maybe, but I think that's pretty uncommon. And so, but you might need to add a transit check, like loading the truck, for example,
right.
Or, if sometimes trucks will overnight in a warehouse, under lock and key, and you want to show that that's been done properly and everything like that. So, so that's how it works. You add the people and you set their permissions, and then by default, everyone will get email notifications whenever a new transit check has been added. So you add the condition reports to the group, and then as it is moving, you add the key stages of movement. So the truck being loaded, the truck being unloaded. If it's going by air, then it's the cargo shed, palletization, being loaded onto the plane and unloaded, and then unloaded from the truck, the crates being opened up and being installed, and that whole kind of process is then documented.
Yeah, and then of course, because you're using the standardized Articheck condition reports, you can have 2 different conservators do 2 different condition reports and 2 different places. So that makes it easier.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Look at that. It's all coming together.
Exactly. And you can also add information because we have video capabilities of things like installation requirements. How do you install this thing? Yeah. And also packing requirements. How do you pack this thing? How should it be packed? And then demonstrating that it was packed and unpacked correctly. Because nowadays, we have a lot of complicated and interesting contemporary art where it's not always very obvious how things are supposed to be done in that way.
Right. Well, that makes total sense, and I'm still amazed at those numbers of savings. It's really 50,000, both in terms of carbon, but also in terms of cost. It's really, that's going to free up so much more opportunities to put that money towards renovating your buildings and putting solar panels on your roof and making a green roof. I think that would be even better.
Exactly.
All of these, opportunities for more sustainable initiatives. That's absolutely incredible.
And you can also, I think there's also some opportunity here in terms of innovation for couriers, in the sense of like our product takes GPS locations as well when you're, so it tracks things as they move. But we also have the opportunity to connect to sensor providers, like Hanha is one that we work with. So you can also track the humidity and the temperature of the things as they're moving.
Oh, okay. That's going to be important for some pieces for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Which is something that a lot of people, historically haven't done. And also with bookend couriers, I think it's important to note that you can take advantage of like local relationships, like a courier that is really familiar with a particular airport, has a relationship with the institution that is receiving the work, but the borrower maybe is a specialist in a particular kind of material. Maybe it's an opportunity that someone who is a specialist in a particular artist or material, is reviewing it, rather than, someone just because they work from they work for the lender. They might not be a
Mhm.
specialist in that type of object. So
Uh-huh.
it can potentially be an opportunity to kind of take advantage of the bookend courier that you're employing as
Yeah,
well.
that's amazing. And so, but also because of the way that you've set up this model, it sounds like it's not just for institutions or, large auction houses, but anybody can use it. Like if an artist wants to ship something from their studio to a client and it's very much,
Absolutely.
one-to-one type of thing, that would also, that would save so much for, an artist's studio, for example.
For
So it
sure.
sounds,
And
yeah.
it's one of the things that we like to talk about is, at the moment, you have a lot more ability, you can see when your socks are coming, from Amazon, you can track your groceries and your socks a lot more easily than you can track a shipment of your, £1 million artwork, right? So
that seems a little bit counterintuitive, if maybe that's the right word. It's hilarious. You're right. That's so funny. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
So,
it sounds like it's just I don't want to say too good to be true, but it sounds like it's just such an innovative solution for something that's been a real problem. And not only, as you mentioned, from an environmental standpoint, but I also think very much from a social standpoint. And you already touched upon, the unfairness in a lot of situations of, institutions not being able to loan to other institutions because maybe they couldn't afford the first class ticket and per diem of the courier. So it also sounds like this is going to make loans more accessible to different sizes of institutions.
absolutely. And, I think while
Cool.
we're talking about the social impact, another kind of elephant in the room to address that a lot of people talk about in terms of, blockers or barriers to this being adopted is a lot of people feel that, people think of these courier trips as like a perk for a job, and that, it's like a nice perk of something that they want to do. And because, let's just get it all out there, that a lot of people are not paid enough, in the museum sector. And so this is something that is like seen as a perk. Well, at least we get to have these great trips. Now, I've done courier trips for institutions before, and I've received a lot of couriers and spoken to a lot of couriers while they were doing their trips. And I can tell you, for one thing, and this is, again, like pre-pandemic in the good old days of courier trips, that a lot of people didn't have time to actually see anything when I was hosting them in London institutions. And, they might have, if they're lucky, they could get away for a couple of hours,
Okay.
And
so it wasn't like a built-in vacation.
no, I mean, unfortunately, and I think actually that's what we need moving forward. And that's how I'm seeing my business trips. I recently, just today, was asked actually to go to an event that's happening in Prague.
Oh, cool.
Shortly, yes, and so I got on the phone to my mother and I said, let's go together and let's take my little 5-year-old boy and let's go on a trip and let's make this a little holiday, because that's another kind of sustainability thing that I'm doing, which is that if I am going to travel, I'm going to make the most of it. I think that that's really important. So it's not just like, because I again, pre-pandemic, I was traveling too much, and
we all were,
yeah,
100%. Yeah.
And so I would sometimes have to just nip in and out of places. And I really felt like it was a missed opportunity. And so I think in the future, it's probably a lot better if you do have, fewer courier trips to go on, to like take a week, make it a
enjoy
holiday.
it. And that's also part of self-care. I mean, it's, as you said, we all are overworked, underpaid, and so busy. And indeed, if you're just flying from Amsterdam to London for a day trip and then coming back, that's exhausting. And if you're doing, 5 trips a month, I mean, it's so draining. And
it's way too much.
I don't think we'll ever get back to that. At least I hope not. I know I was also doing that, and it's so unsustainable from so many different perspectives. But I think that if you have these options, if you have, maybe there is a courier trip that you go to Japan, and like, what an amazing opportunity. And so then you can spend an extra couple of weeks there and make it a holiday. That sounds more like a perk to me than, flying to Japan for 24 hours and flying back. I know people who have done that. So
yes, absolutely. And also, frankly, let's argue with management that we need proper pay. let's not,
you know what?
you know,
That's maybe it's not about spending all of the money on the per diem and the first class trip, but actually providing livable salaries and wages.
yeah.
What a concept. There we go. And then maybe that can help with, you know, the diversity of our organizations, because then the jobs can be more attractive because they're more stable and they provide a better income. And so more people will be able to get into the cultural sector.
100%, because that was, I have to say, a major gripe for me going into conservation was, and again, I don't want to, I hate, you know, calling institutions and people out, but and I've already said where I used to work, but I mean,
sorry, Tate, we love you.
Yeah, sorry, Tate, but and you know, this is not just not to single them out. This is true everywhere. That, you know, there are a lot of people that can afford to work at these institutions. It's because they're independently wealthy. Quite frankly, they have husbands that have well-paying jobs. It attracts, you know, a lot of women that want to work part-time, that have kids, and that don't need the money. And, you know, that is a profile of many conservators and many institutions. And I actually know, and while we're calling out, I'll call out one more. At the V&A in London, apparently it wasn't until the 1970s that conservators even deigned to draw a salary. Before that, it was a total prestige job. Apparently, this is just gossip now I'm indulging in, but that's what I heard.
Wow. Well, but it is really true. And this is something that I think people are becoming more and more aware of is, you know, the economic unsustainability of our institutions. And there's so many different types of this. I mean, we already talked about, you know, the aspects of people not being able to afford sustainability, but then they're spending, you know, 500,000 pounds on couriers for one exhibition. And it's like, I think it's a value system. I think it's a priorities thing. And I think it's also just having the knowledge about different options and having the balls, pardon me for saying, but to try something different. And I think, you know, this is what I love so much about Virtual Courier is that this is a real solution and it's there and it's available, and you don't have any excuses anymore for saying, oh, we don't have a budget for virtual or for, you know, a sustainability thing, or we don't have a budget for Virtual Courier. I'm sorry, it's 1/10 of what it's going to cost you if you send a person. And, you know, so it's really, it seems to me such a win-win on so many levels. And so it's just, you know, obviously
sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
No excuses. I'm just going to remember to say that we have an offer on right now, which is a free Virtual Courier move in Q1. So amazing. No excuses.
Literally no excuses. You have nothing to lose. There's no investment. It's just a free opportunity to try. Well, I think that's brilliant. All right. Well, everyone, I hope will give this a try, because it's not just for large institutions. So artists, galleries, you know, independent conservators, if you have a lab and you just need to ship something to, you know, the next country, you can do so with Virtual Courier. So it sounds like it's a perfect opportunity to try. And
actually, in speaking to all of the players that are not large institutions, I would, in fact, really encourage and urge you to try it, because, in fact, my feeling is that what is going to help encourage larger institutions who find change, you know, the most difficult in the industry to make that change is if their partners are saying, we want to use Virtual Courier. You know, if it's the artist studios and the galleries and the private collections that do lending, if they're like, hey, why don't we use Virtual Courier? And that is going to help the large institutions to say, okay, yes, let's try this.
Brilliant. Well, I think, you know, this is why I think it's so important that we're all aware of these solutions so that we can be advocates for them. So I also would love to encourage everyone to give that a try. And especially, I mean, you've got a free trial right now, so, you know, take advantage. That's amazing. That's really very generous. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Well, I know we're running a little bit out of time and I know it's late there, so I do want to be respectful. But I know that, I mean, I know we talked a lot about Virtual Courier and there's so many amazing other things that you guys are doing. You have weekly webinars on various topics, on sustainability and also other issues within the art world.
We do.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's called
everyone
Art
check them out.
Evolve.
Art
Thank
Evolve.
you
Okay.
very much. Yes, and you can sign up for those on our website, and you can also see recordings of previous Art Evolves. And yes, a lot of them have a sustainability theme. For example, we had some architects, Samuel Anderson architects, talked about their computer simulation, which was on, because I've been wondering this question for a long time, and you probably have too, if museums did adopt the Bizoit Green protocols, how much would they stand to save, right? And so
that's going to be a driving force for this, I think.
Yes, and so they found in their computer simulation, which is based on 20 years of their US museum clients' buildings data, that historic buildings would save around 25% and modern buildings would save around 34%.
Wow. And once again, win-win.
Indeed, yeah.
Better for the environment, better for our wallets. I mean, we're literally running out of excuses right now. So that's amazing. Yeah. So, and those are free. So you can just register and
Absolutely.
Join those. Amazing. And I know that you're a huge advocate for Bizo, and I think are you developing a project around Bizo?
Yes, we are. We are. We are really hoping to integrate with Conserve.
Cool.
And to develop a kind of package, where a sort of sustainability pilots package, where we encourage people who are participating to choose a pilot space to adopt the Bizoit Green protocols in. And in that space, they will get 2 sensors from Conserve, which they can place in the space. They then just need to upload their object list of the objects in the space to Articheck, do a quick survey to make sure that anything that is super fragile should be taken out of that space or put in a micro environment. And then we wait, an agreed amount of time, 6, 9, 12 months, and then Conserve and Articheck spit out a report, which hopefully will say, jazz hands, everything is fine still, everything is all good. And then, maybe they upload that report onto the Keyport so that everyone can discover it and find that, that was, that worked fine, and they can move on to the next area. So that's, trying to help support people's confidence with data and reporting is the idea, basically.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I think that's really the only thing that's missing. I think people are nervous to, try something new because, I always say no one wants to be the one who burns down the Notre Dame. Like it's so scary working with these just absolutely invaluable objects that are completely and totally irreplaceable. So it can feel really scary to try something different. Yeah. But the more data we have, the more case studies that we have, the more proof that this is going to be okay. And everyone, guess what? It is going to be okay. You are talking with 2 conservators here who can tell you from our knowledge as conservators, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I cannot stress that enough. It's going to be okay. Bizo has all of the scientific data behind it, but I think some of these case studies are really going to make huge changes, and also just the communication. And I know that that's something that you really excel at is, dissemination of information and getting this information out there. Not only through the webinars, but you also wrote an article for Rolling Stone, I believe.
I did, yes.
I mean, and I told you guys, she does it all. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. My last one was covering COP26 from a culture perspective, because I got to
even get into COP. My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much? We're gonna have to do another one of these. But oh my goodness. Amazing. Amazing. Well, Annika, thank you so much for your time. It's been such a pleasure. And I have to ask you one more thing before I let you go enjoy the rest of your evening. And I ask everyone this. So obviously everyone who's listening wants to be more sustainable. Do you have one tip, one thing that our audience can start doing today to help them on their sustainability journeys?
I absolutely do. And that one tip is to review your institution, if you work for an institution's lender agreement, and to add the Bizoit Green protocols to your lender agreement as your default position for climate control of your own works for loans out.
Amazing. Well, that's going to make it so much easier for other institutions to adapt BIZO in their own places, because then they can still engage with loans.
Exactly.
BIZO, everyone, it's the answer.
BIZO, BIZO.
We should have like a BIZO dance. I'm pretty sure that should be a thing.
We should.
That's amazing. Well, Annika, thank you so much again. It's been such a pleasure as always speaking with you, and I'm really grateful for your time, and even more so for all of the amazing work you do. It's absolutely extraordinary. You're like superwoman doing it all. So thank you so much for all of your hard work.
I really appreciate you too, Caitlin. I really want to applaud you for doing this series and doing Key Culture. I think it's so fantastic. It's such a great initiative. And I think people, we really need this kind of support system and education to help us, navigate these it's challenging, and it can be overwhelming to kind of figure out what to do to try and be better in terms of our carbon footprint. So I think that it's really such critical and important work. So thank you so much for inviting me. And I really had a great time. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And as you said, we need solutions as well. So it's very important that we make sure that we have, the companies and the vendors and suppliers providing us with sustainable solutions, so we don't have any excuses. So there we go. Everyone, if you take one thing away from today, it's that we no longer have an excuse. We have all of the solutions. We have the answers. We have the scientific support. Let's do it. So here we go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Great call to action.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you, I believe, next week. And looking forward to continued discussion. So thank you again, Annika. Super appreciated. And bye, everyone.
Caitlin. Bye.